Lady Serena stood on the balcony of the Grand Palace, her eyes scanning the crowd that had gathered in the central plaza of Virelia's capital. The sun reflected off the crystal towers, making the city shine like a jewel in the sky. She could feel the excitement, the whispers of nobles, and the anticipation of the people below. Today was not just any day, it was her wedding day. And not just any wedding. Today, she would marry Elias, the quiet human from the distant planet Earth. The Virelians were a proud species. They were tall, with elegant features, and their culture valued strength, intelligence, and public display of power. They had heard of humans before, but only in stories, and those stories always made humans sound weak, unpredictable, and foolish. Many in the court secretly laughed at the idea that Lady Serena, a respected noble, would marry one. Yet, she had chosen Elias. Elias himself stood quietly beside the ceremonial dais. He wore a simple, yet perfectly tailored outfit that did not draw attention to wealth or status. His brown eyes scanned the plaza calmly, and though he said almost nothing, his presence had a subtle power. The Virelians were not used to quiet humans. They expected gestures, speeches, and displays of skill. Elias offered none of those. Instead, he observed every guard's stance, every noble's expression, every detail of the palace and crowd. Nothing escaped his attention. Lady Serena had always admired quiet confidence. Many humans were loud and reckless in their actions, but Elias was different. He did not need to speak to be noticed. There was a calm strength about him that made her trust him completely. Even if the rest of the world doubted him, the ceremony began. Elegant Virelian musicians played a melodic tune that seemed to echo from the crystal towers themselves. Nobles lined the plaza, their eyes fixed on the couple. Some whispered insults to each other, mocking the human groom, while others exchanged curious glances. How could a human match the grace and power of the Virelian elite? As the high priest spoke the ancient vows, Elias listened attentively. His voice was soft when he finally spoke, clear and deliberate, reciting the words with careful respect for tradition. The crowd noticed his calm tone, and while some still doubted him, a few of the more thoughtful nobles began to wonder if perhaps there was more to humans than they had been told. The ceremony concluded with the exchange of rings, each carved from rare Virelian crystal, and infused with energy to symbolize unity and trust. Elias placed the ring on Lady Serena's finger with careful precision. He looked at her once, a brief but meaningful glance that conveyed more than words could. Lady Serena felt a warmth in her heart, knowing that she had made the right choice. After the formalities, the wedding feast began. Aliens of every type filled the halls, their eyes shifting between curiosity and skepticism. The Virelian nobles whispered about Elias's quiet nature, questioning if such a husband could ever protect Lady Serena, lead her people, or command respect in a society where power was everything. Elias did not respond to the whispers. Instead, he walked calmly among the guests, greeting them politely, observing their behavior, and listening carefully. He noticed which nobles spoke with confidence and which were afraid of losing their place in society. He noticed which guards were loyal and which seemed distracted or hesitant. Every detail mattered. Lady Serena watched him closely. She noticed how Elias's quiet demeanor did not make him weak. Rather, it made him different. While others tried to impress, he quietly assessed and adapted. It was a skill that few aliens possessed. Where they relied on intimidation or tradition, he relied on observation and understanding. Later, when the crowd moved to the dance hall, Elias stepped aside and observed the interactions around him. He noticed small injustices, servants being ignored or treated harshly, minor nobles being dismissed or mocked. He quietly intervened, offering a kind word, a small gesture, or a helping hand. These acts were so subtle that most did not notice them, but those who did began to admire him in secret. Even the Virelian children were drawn to him. While they had been taught that humans were weak and unworthy of attention, Elias treated them with respect and curiosity. He listened to their stories, asked gentle questions, and shared small games that made them laugh. Slowly, the children began to believe that humans could be strong in ways that were not immediately visible. The evening ended with fireworks that lit up the sky, reflecting off the crystal towers in brilliant colors. The nobles clapped and cheered, but many still whispered doubts about the human groom. Elias, however, remained calm. He did not need applause or approval. He had learned to wait, to observe, and to act at the right moment. That night, after the guests had departed, Lady Serena and Elias stood on the balcony again, looking at the city lights below. She spoke softly. "You did not speak much today, but you held the room with your presence. They may not see it yet, but I do." Elias smiled faintly. "I do not need to prove myself today," he replied. "The time will come when the galaxy listens. For now, I learn, I observe, and I prepare." Lady Serena nodded, feeling a mixture of admiration and relief. She had chosen a human who did not rely on noise or force to make his presence known. Instead, he had a patience and intelligence that even the most cunning Virelians might underestimate, and that could become his greatest strength. In the days that followed, life in the palace continued. Elias moved through the halls quietly, learning everything he could. He observed the politics of the court, the alliances and betrayals, the subtle manipulations that governed every interaction. Many nobles still laughed at him behind his back, calling him the quiet human, but Elias paid them no attention. He knew that strength was not always loud or visible. He also began to learn Virelian combat techniques, not in public, but in the secret training rooms. While he had little experience with Virelian weapons, he adapted quickly. His human instincts, combined with careful study, allowed him to learn strategies faster than most expected. Even the instructors, skeptical at first, began to notice his skill. Lady Serena watched him with growing pride. She knew that one day, Elias's quiet strength would show the galaxy that humans were not weak. The Virelians, the nobles, and even the distant powers of other worlds would have to respect him not because he demanded it, but because he earned it through skill, courage, and intelligence. And so, the quiet human husband stood, watching, learning, and preparing. The galaxy might not yet understand him, but Lady Serena did. And that was enough for now. Little did anyone know, the calm and unassuming Elias was about to change the course of not just Virelia, but the galaxy itself, one silent, deliberate step at a time. The days after the wedding were not peaceful in Virelia. Though the grand celebration had ended, the palace was filled with tension. The nobles, who had watched Elias quietly observe during the ceremony, whispered among themselves. Many still mocked the human, calling him weak and inexperienced. Yet some could not deny the strange confidence in his calm eyes, or the way he moved through the palace, as if he understood every hidden corner and secret passage. Lady Serena noticed the murmurs, but she refused to let them disturb her. She had chosen Elias because of his intelligence, patience, and steady presence. Unlike most Virelians, who relied on arrogance and power to gain respect, Elias observed, learned, and acted only when necessary. This was a trait that few in the palace understood, but those who paid attention could see its potential. One afternoon, as Elias walked through the palace gardens, he overheard a conversation that confirmed his suspicions. Hidden among the hedges, two nobles were speaking in hushed tones. "The council grows impatient," one said. "Serena is weak because of her choice. That human will never protect her or hold the people. Soon, we will take control, and nothing will stop us." Elias did not confront them. Instead, he silently noted every word, the names of those conspiring, their plans, their timing. He remembered it all. In humans, such careful observation and patience was common. They did not act on emotion. They prepared. That evening, he joined Lady Serena in her private study. The room was warm, with soft lights, filled with books, maps, and records of past political events. Serena pored over reports from distant sectors, while Elias quietly studied the palace charts and personnel lists. "You seem calm," Serena said. "Are you not worried about them?" Elias shook his head. "Worry does not solve anything. I will learn their patterns. I will understand them, And when the time comes, I will act. But for now, patience is our ally." Serena smiled. She had long learned that humans often saw solutions differently than Virelians. Where her people acted quickly, trying to show power, Elias moved quietly, gathering knowledge and allies in ways that were invisible to most. Meanwhile, the conspirators continued their plotting, unaware that the quiet human observed everything. Elias began to reach out to those in the palace who were often overlooked: the minor nobles, the servants, and the exiled advisors. These were the people the council ignored or dismissed, but they were loyal, intelligent, and skilled. Elias treated them with respect, listened to their ideas, and encouraged them. Slowly, a network of allies formed, loyal not because of fear, but because of admiration and trust. During these days, Elias also began a secret training regimen. Humans were naturally versatile, and he combined his knowledge of human combat with what he had learned about Virelian weaponry. His weapon of choice was a plasma-infused sword, a human design from an era before the galaxy had recognized humanity's potential. He trained in secret, moving with quiet precision, cutting through holographic targets, and sparring with droids programmed to simulate the best Virelian fighters. One evening, after a long session in the training room, Elias returned to Lady Serena. She watched him carefully, noticing the focus in his movements, the way he controlled every strike with thought and calculation. "You move differently," she said softly. "The nobles will never understand this. They think strength is loud," Elias replied. "But true strength is quiet, deliberate. It is patience and preparation. One day, they will see it in action." Weeks passed, and the tension in the palace grew. The council grew bolder, testing Lady Serena's authority with small acts of defiance. They challenged her decisions in public, spread rumors about her human husband, and tried to isolate her from loyal allies. Yet each time, Elias quietly prevented harm. A poisoned gift was intercepted before it reached her. A security breach was noticed and corrected without alarm. The human husband they mocked as weak became an invisible shield around Lady Serena. The Virelians began to notice, in whispers and sideways glances. Small victories like these made them uneasy. They could not see the full extent of Elias's abilities, but they could feel his influence. The servants spoke of his fairness, the minor nobles of his insight, and even the palace guards began to respect his calm authority. One day, Elias walked through the markets of the capital in plain clothes. He wanted to observe the city, to understand its people, and to see the challenges beyond the palace walls. What he saw was troubling. Corruption, inequality, and fear were common. Some merchants were extorted by local gangs, while others were ignored by the officials supposed to protect them. Yet Elias did not despair. He observed, he learned, and he began to formulate small interventions. He helped a merchant whose stall was threatened by extortionists, not with force, but with clever planning and strategy. He guided others to solve disputes before they escalated. Slowly, word of a quiet human who helped without seeking fame or reward began to spread. People began to admire him not for his strength, but for his wisdom, patience, and fairness. Back in the palace, Lady Serena noticed a change. The nobles who had doubted Elias began to hesitate before speaking against him. Some, secretly impressed, began to consider his advice, even if they would never admit it openly. The council, frustrated by the lack of open confrontation, grew more reckless in their plotting. One night, in the quiet of the palace library, Elias shared his plan with Serena. "The council believes they can act without consequence," he said, "but they underestimate us. We must be ready. Knowledge, alliances, and preparation will give us the advantage. They rely on fear. We rely on strategy." Serena nodded. She knew that Elias's methods were unlike any she had seen among her people. He did not need to display power loudly to make an impact. His calm, thoughtful approach allowed him to act at the right moment with maximum effect. The first signs of rebellion were subtle. Messages intercepted, suspicious movements in the halls, and unusual gatherings among certain nobles, all signs that a larger plot was forming. Yet Elias remained patient. He trained, he observed, and he strengthened his network. He quietly prepared the people of the palace to face the coming storm, showing them that true strength often came in silence, thought, and careful planning. As the sun set over Viralia, Elias stood on the balcony with Lady Serena once more. The city below was quiet, unaware of the brewing storm within its walls. "They do not know what is coming," Elias said softly, his eyes reflecting the fading light. "But when the time arrives, they will learn that humans are not weak. We do not strike without reason, but when we do, we strike with precision and purpose." Lady Serena placed a hand on his arm. "I trust you," she said. "The palace, the city, and perhaps the galaxy will see your strength, even if they cannot yet understand it." Elias nodded. "Patience is the first weapon," he replied. "The sword will come later. For now, we watch, we learn, and we prepare." And so, the quiet human continued to observe and plan. The council's whispers of rebellion grew louder, unaware that every secret had already been noted. The stage was set for the first demonstration of Elias's true power, a display that would shock the Virelian court and begin the legend of a human who would make the galaxy listen. Tension filled the grand hall of Virelia's palace. The council had grown bold. They had decided that Lady Serena's influence had to be removed, and their plan was carefully timed to strike during the next public ceremony. The nobles, who once whispered quietly in corners, now met openly. Confident in their strategy, they believed the quiet human, Elias, was still harmless. Elias, however, had been waiting. For weeks, he had observed, memorized every guard rotation, studied the architecture of the palace, and noted every weakness in the council's plan. Unlike the council, he did not rely on arrogance or brute force. His strength was preparation, intelligence, and patience. The day of the ceremony arrived. The hall was filled with the elite of Virelia, the shining lights of crystal chandeliers reflecting off their elaborate garments. Lady Serena walked gracefully down the aisle, her head held high. Elias followed behind, calm and silent, as he always did. The council's plan began immediately. Hidden traps activated. Security droids moved silently to block exits. Energy nets dropped from the ceiling, and mechanical weapons aimed to strike fear into the crowd. The nobles gasped and shouted. Panic spread among the guests. The council smiled, believing their victory was assured. Elias stepped forward. His calm presence cut through the chaos. He did not shout. He did not panic. Instead, he moved with a quiet precision that seemed almost unnatural. The first energy net dropped toward Lady Serena, and in a single, fluid motion, Elias drew his plasma-infused sword. It hummed with energy as he swung it, slicing the net cleanly before it could reach her. The crowd froze. None had expected a human to act with such skill. The council's smug expressions faltered, replaced with disbelief. One of the nobles shouted, "Stop him! He is just a human." But Elias did not stop. Each movement was calculated. He disarmed mechanical traps with minimal effort, redirected falling droids, and protected Lady Serena as if his body and mind were one. His eyes scanned the room constantly, anticipating every threat before it could reach its target. Lady Serena watched, her heart racing, but not with fear. She felt pride, admiration, and a deep trust in the man beside her. The human they had mocked as weak had become their shield and guide in the chaos. The council tried to intervene directly, sending their elite warriors to attack Elias, but they were unprepared for his speed and precision. With careful footwork and expert swings of his sword, Elias disarmed, disabled, and avoided attacks. Moving like water flowing around obstacles, the nobles watched in awe. For the first time, many realized that humans were not to be underestimated. A minor explosion in the corner of the hall sent a cloud of smoke across the floor. The council expected it to cause panic, but Elias acted quickly. Clearing a path, and ensuring the safety of the guests. The smoke revealed a new threat, a squad of mechanical warriors, programmed to capture Lady Serena. Elias did not hesitate. His sword hummed, cutting through the machinery with precision. Sparks flew, metal bent, and the machines fell to the floor. Disabled, every strike was efficient, controlled, and deliberate. His calm movements contrasted sharply with the chaos surrounding him, creating a sense of order in the panic. The council grew desperate. "He is just a human," they shouted again. But their words no longer carried power. The nobles and guards had begun to notice something extraordinary. Elias was not just fighting, he was leading. His calm focus inspired confidence, even among those who had doubted him. The guards followed his subtle gestures, protecting the guests and maintaining order. Elias noticed one council member attempting to escape through a hidden passage. With a precise throw of his sword, the plasma blade hit a wall near the passage, activating a small control panel that locked the exit. The council member froze, realizing they were trapped. Elias approached, calm but firm. "You sought to harm Lady Serena," he said quietly. "That will not happen." The council member hesitated, then bowed in reluctant submission. The others, witnessing the effectiveness and control of the human, began to reconsider their arrogance. By the time the chaos subsided, the council's plan had failed completely. Not a single guest was harmed, and the conspirators were captured or forced to retreat. The crowd, initially terrified, erupted into applause and cheers. Even those who had doubted Elias could no longer ignore the truth. This quiet human was a force unlike any they had seen. Lady Serena approached him, her eyes shining. "You were incredible," she said softly. "I have never seen anyone move like that." Elias sheathed his sword, the hum of energy fading. "It was not skill alone," he replied. "It was preparation, observation, and patience. Strength comes in many forms. They underestimated us because they did not understand how humans act." The nobles, once mocking, now whispered among themselves. Some admired him secretly, while others were forced to acknowledge his brilliance publicly. The message was clear. Elias was not weak. He was intelligent, courageous, and decisive. In the days that followed, word of the quiet human who defended the palace spread across Virelia. People spoke of his skill with the plasma sword, his calmness under pressure, and his ability to lead without shouting. Even distant planets began to hear rumors of the human who had faced the Virelian elite and emerged victorious without arrogance or bloodshed. Elias did not seek fame. He remained quiet, observing the palace and city as always. Yet, the effect of his actions was undeniable. The nobles who once dismissed him began to approach him cautiously, seeking his advice or guidance. The council, shaken and humiliated, plotted more carefully, now wary of the human they had underestimated. Lady Serena, proud and amazed, knew that this was only the beginning. Elias had proven not just to the council, but to the entire palace, that humans could be more than they appeared. His calm intelligence, combined with courage and skill, made him a figure to respect, even fear. As night fell over the capital, Elias stood with Lady Serena on the palace balcony once more. The city below was quiet, its lights shimmering like stars. "Today, they learned that humans are not weak," he said softly. "Tomorrow, the galaxy will begin to understand. Our work is only starting." Serena smiled, her hand resting on his arm. "They will see," she said, "and they will listen. Because you do not just fight, you inspire." Elias nodded, his eyes focused on the horizon. Patience and preparation, one step at a time. But when we act, the universe will know that humans cannot be ignored. The quiet human had made his first strike, and the world would never see him the same way again. The victory in the palace had changed everything. Word of Elias's skill, calm intelligence, and courage spread quickly across Virelia and into distant star systems. Aliens who had once dismissed humans now spoke of him with curiosity and awe. It was clear. Humans were not weak, And Elias, the quiet human husband of Lady Serena, had become a symbol of potential and hope. Lady Serena knew that staying in Virelia would only limit Elias's influence. The galaxy was vast, filled with worlds in conflict, disputes that needed resolution, and civilizations that had never seen humans at their best. Together, they decided to embark on a journey across the stars, to meet distant allies, prevent wars, and demonstrate humanity's unique strength. Their first stop was Clithara, a planet known for its floating cities and advanced energy technology. Political tensions were high there, and a feud between two major houses threatened to erupt into open violence. The Clitharans had heard rumors of the human who had defended a noblewoman from the Virelian council. Some dismissed it as exaggeration, but many were curious to see for themselves. Elias observed quietly, analyzing the situation. He spoke little, but when he did, his words were precise and logical. He suggested a series of small, clever steps to mediate the conflict. Redistributing resources, establishing temporary councils, and creating communication channels between the opposing houses. The Clitharans, initially skeptical, were surprised by how effective his ideas were. Within days, tensions eased, and what had seemed like an inevitable war became a cooperative effort. During this time, Elias also demonstrated his combat skill. When a small group attempted to disrupt the negotiations with advanced energy weapons, Elias moved calmly, disarming the attackers and protecting everyone without unnecessary violence. The locals watched in amazement. They had expected humans to be weak, unpredictable, or reckless, but here was a human, acting with calm courage, precision, and intelligence. Lady Serena stood beside him, proud and impressed. "They are starting to understand," she said softly. "Your calm and skill are changing how they see humans." Elias nodded. "They will see more. One victory does not make a legend, but consistent action does. The galaxy responds to results, not words." From Clithara, their journey continued to Zarathus, a desert planet plagued by rogue mercenaries who threatened trade routes. Elias and Serena arrived quietly, without military support. Yet, through careful observation and planning, Elias orchestrated defenses along the trade routes, guided the local forces, and used clever strategies to trap the mercenaries. Once again, the quiet human who had been underestimated succeeded where others might have failed. The Zarathus Council marveled at his skill. "No human has ever done this," they said. "Yet here is one who outmatches our best strategists." Elias remained humble. "I do not seek praise," he said. "I seek solutions. Conflict can be resolved without unnecessary bloodshed. If one is willing to think, observe, and act wisely." News of these successes spread like wildfire. Across the galaxy, humans began to be seen differently. Distant species who had once ignored or mocked humanity now sent emissaries to learn, observe, and even collaborate with humans. The idea that humans were weak faded as stories of Elias's calm courage, intelligence, and skill traveled across stars. Meanwhile, Elias also focused on training. He taught human and alien allies alike to think strategically, to plan ahead, and to act decisively. He shared knowledge of human adaptability, creativity, and teamwork qualities, often underestimated by more rigid civilizations. His students were inspired not by force, but by example. They learned that strength could come in many forms: quiet observation, careful planning, and decisive action when the time was right. Lady Serena watched him teach and lead. She realized that this journey was not just about diplomacy or strategy. It was about reshaping how the galaxy viewed humans. Elias was proving that their species had unique strengths that could not be measured by brute power alone. Their travels also allowed them to encounter unexpected allies. On Virelon Prime, a planet known for its vast oceans and peaceful people, Elias mediated a dispute between traders and local officials. On Dracor, a volcanic world, he led efforts to evacuate civilians during a dangerous eruption, using human problem-solving skills to navigate the treacherous terrain. Everywhere they went, Elias remained calm, precise, and effective. The pattern was clear. Humans were not weak, reckless, or fragile. They were adaptable, intelligent, courageous, and capable of inspiring others. And Elias, the quiet human who had once stood silently beside Lady Serena, became the living example of this truth. Even the most skeptical species began to notice. Reports came back to Virelia of distant councils discussing the human who traveled across the stars, resolving conflicts, saving lives, and demonstrating leadership without arrogance. Aliens who had once dismissed humans now approached them respectfully, curious to learn from their wisdom. Yet Elias never sought glory. Each success was quietly noted, each lesson carefully taught, and each problem solved with patience and planning. He did not act for fame. He acted for results. His calm presence, intelligence, and skill became a symbol not just of human strength, but of human wisdom. As the journey continued, Lady Serena reflected on how far they had come. The quiet human husband, once underestimated and mocked, had become a symbol across multiple worlds. And this was only the beginning. The galaxy had learned to notice humans, to respect them, and to listen when they spoke or acted. One night, aboard their starship, as they traveled to a distant system, Elias stood at the observation window. Stars stretched endlessly before him, and the quiet hum of the ship filled the room. Lady Serena joined him, placing a hand on his arm. "They are starting to see humans differently," she said softly. "Your actions are changing the galaxy. One step at a time." Elias did not turn. "They will see more. Our work is not done. There are conflicts, threats, and dangers in the galaxy that still believe humans are weak. We must show them that patience, preparation, and courage can overcome any challenge." Serena smiled. "And they will learn. Because you lead by example. Not by words, not by force, but by action." Elias nodded. "The galaxy listens to strength. But true strength is more than power. It is intelligence, courage, and the willingness to act when it matters most. And humanity has all of that, if it is given the chance." And so, they traveled onward, across star systems and through countless worlds, quietly but effectively reshaping the galaxy's view of humanity. Each planet, each conflict, each challenge became a testament to what humans could achieve. The quiet husband, once underestimated, had become a legend in the making, one that would make the galaxy listen. The calm that had followed Elias's journey across the stars was about to be shattered. A coalition of alien powers, threatened by humanity's rising influence, formed in secret. They believed humans were a risk to their dominance, and decided to act before humans could gain more allies. Lady Serena received the first warnings through her network. The coalition planned a massive strike, targeting multiple planets simultaneously, including Virelia. Panic began to spread among those who had not yet witnessed Elias's abilities firsthand. But Elias remained calm. He had expected challenges of this scale. Over the months, he had observed, learned, and prepared. Now, the moment had come to test everything he had built. Alliances, strategies, and human courage. On the eve of the first attack, Elias stood in the command room aboard their flagship, reviewing star maps and fleet positions. Aliens from allied systems filled the room, unsure and nervous. Many had doubts. Could a human truly lead them against such overwhelming forces? Elias's voice was quiet but firm. "Fear does not win battles," he said. "Preparation, unity, and courage do. Follow my lead, and you will see that humans can achieve what others consider impossible." The coalition struck at dawn. Massive ships blotted out the stars as they approached the Allied fleets. On the ground, skilled warriors and advanced technology clashed, creating chaos and confusion. The alien commanders assumed humans would falter, relying on brute force and panic. But Elias had a different approach. He moved among the Allied fleets, coordinating defenses with precision. He directed ships to strategic positions, using both technology and strategy to outmaneuver the attackers. His calm presence inspired confidence. Even those who had doubted humans now followed his guidance without question. Meanwhile, Lady Serena led efforts on Virelia, organizing evacuation routes, fortifying cities, and protecting civilians. She relied on Elias's plans, which were clear, logical, and adaptable. Wherever the coalition attacked, they found themselves countered by a human who had anticipated their moves. On one battlefield, a squad of elite coalition fighters descended to capture key command centers. Elias met them personally, plasma sword in hand. Unlike the chaos around him, his movements were precise and deliberate. Each strike disabled a weapon, each block neutralized an attack, and each maneuver protected his allies. The coalition warriors were shocked. Humans, they had believed, were weak, unpredictable, and easy to defeat. Yet Elias moved with speed, intelligence, and skill that no training could have predicted. They realized too late that this human had studied them, understood their tactics, and could counter them at every step. Elsewhere in space, fleets followed Elias's orders. Ships moved like a single organism, coordinated and efficient. Energy blasts that had once struck fear were deflected, intercepted, or avoided entirely. Where the coalition expected confusion and panic, they found organization, precision, and strategy. The battle raged for hours, yet Elias remained calm. He moved through every crisis, solving problems in ways that inspired both humans and alien allies. His quiet leadership became the heartbeat of the defense. Those fighting alongside him realized that courage was contagious, and intelligence could turn the tide even in impossible situations. By midday, the coalition began to falter. Their attacks were scattered and disorganized. The Allied forces, led by Elias's strategies, gained the advantage. The coalition ships retreated, and their elite ground units surrendered, realizing they had underestimated humans and their allies. In the aftermath, the galaxy began to change. Reports of Elias's leadership, courage, and skill spread to worlds far beyond the battle. Aliens who had doubted humanity now sought alliances, eager to learn and cooperate. Humans were no longer seen as weak. They were respected, feared, and admired for their intelligence, adaptability, and courage. Lady Serena stood beside Elias on the balcony of Virelia's palace, watching the celebrations. Citizens, aliens, and allies alike cheered not only for the victory but for the quiet human who had led them. She turned to him, pride shining in her eyes. "You did it," she said softly. "The galaxy sees what I have always known." Elias shook his head slightly. "We did it," he replied. "Every ally, every preparation, every step we took, it all mattered. Humans are capable, yes, but our greatest strength is our willingness to act wisely, to protect, and to inspire others." As the days passed, humans began to take their place in galactic councils and alliances. Their reputation as clever, brave, and adaptable beings grew with each mission, each negotiation, and each act of courage. Across star systems, Elias's example inspired others to rise, showing that strength was not always loud or forceful. It could be quiet, deliberate, and intelligent. Even the council members from Virelia, who had once plotted against Lady Serena and mocked Elias, now bowed in respect. They understood that human courage and intelligence had saved their civilization and many others. Elias and Lady Serena continued their work. They traveled to distant planets, helping civilizations in conflict, mediating disputes, and training allies in strategy and problem-solving. Each step, each action, reinforced the idea that humans could lead, protect, and inspire without needing to dominate or threaten. At night, aboard their flagship, Elias often stood before the observation window, watching the stars stretch endlessly into the distance. Lady Serena joined him, her hand resting on his arm. "They are listening now," she said softly. "The galaxy has learned that humans are not weak, but strong in ways they never expected." Elias nodded. Yes, they listen because humans act with courage, intelligence, and honor. We do not seek power for its own sake, but we do take responsibility when needed. That is what they respect, and that is what they will follow. And so, the galaxy changed. Humans, once dismissed as weak and simple, became a force of inspiration. They were respected for their courage, intelligence, and ability to unite others. And at the heart of this transformation was Elias, the quiet human husband who had stood silently beside Lady Serena, learning, observing, and preparing. Until the day his sword made the galaxy listen. In time, stories of Elias's deeds became legend. Across star systems, children learned of the quiet human who taught courage, inspired hope, and led with wisdom. Leaders remembered his calm intelligence and courage in the face of overwhelming danger. And humanity, once underestimated, secured its place in the galaxy, not by fear or force, but by action, honor, and the quiet power of a human heart. The galaxy had learned a lesson it would never forget. Strength comes in many forms, and sometimes the quietest voice can carry the loudest message. Elias stood beside Lady Serena, watching distant stars. His journey was far from over. But one truth was clear. Humans had arrived, and the galaxy would never underestimate them again.